Faith Grell stood frozen in the middle of Lars Anderson Park on an autumn afternoon. Her 5-year-old son Leo had just opened his mouth and made his first sound in his entire life. Not for the team of million-dollar specialists she had hired, but for a complete stranger kneeling before him, holding a wooden whistle in his callous hand. A whistle, raw and breathy and vibrating from vocal cords doctors said were paralyzed. Faith's phone slipped from her fingers. 5 years, countless surgeries, endless nights alone wondering if she would ever hear her son's voice. And all it took was a single dad in a park who treated Leo like he was already whole. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you are tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. 5 years earlier, Faith had been a rising tech CEO building an empire. But when Leo was born silent, when the doctors told her his vocal cords would never work, when specialists said there was no hope, Faith's world collapsed into one single obsession: finding a cure for her son. She tried everything, surgery after surgery, digital speech devices, the best medical minds in the world. She spent millions. She sacrificed her personal life. She became known as the Iron CEO who could command a boardroom but couldn't make her own child speak. Until today. Until a stranger named Alfred Williams showed Leo a wooden whistle and changed everything. Faith had not planned to be at the park that afternoon. She had a board meeting in 2 hours. She had calls to return and contracts to review. But her assistant had practically forced her out of the office. The assistant said Faith looked exhausted, that she needed fresh air, that Leo needed to see something other than hospital waiting rooms. So Faith agreed. She took Leo to Lars Anderson Park in Boston. It was a beautiful October day. The leaves were gold and red. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. Families were everywhere. Children were running and laughing and playing. Leo sat alone on a blanket with his iPad. The iPad had a speech app that let Leo tap pictures to communicate. He tapped the icon for water when he was thirsty. He tapped tired when he wanted to go home. It was functional but cold. There was no voice, no inflection, no life. Faith stood 10 feet away answering emails on her phone. She watched Leo out of the corner of her eye. He was watching the other children play. He looked lonely. Faith's chest ached. She wanted to fix it, but she did not know how. Then Faith noticed a man sitting on a nearby bench. He was in his early 30s. He wore jeans and a worn jacket. He had dark hair and kind eyes. Next to him sat a little girl about Leo's age. The girl had curly hair and a bright smile. The man was teaching the girl how to carve wood. He had small wooden blocks and carving tools. He showed the girl how to hold the knife safely, how to shave thin pieces off the wood. The girl was focused and happy. Then the man pulled out a wooden whistle. It was small and simple, hand-carved. He put it to his lips and blew a soft bird call. The sound was clear and melodic. The girl laughed and clapped. She tried to whistle too, but only managed to blow air. Leo's head turned. He was staring at them. Faith saw the curiosity in his eyes. It was the most interested she had seen him in months. The man noticed Leo watching. He smiled and waved. Leo did not wave back, but he did not look away either. The man stood up and walked over. His daughter followed. The man knelt down in front of Leo, at eye level. He did not tower over him. He did not treat Leo like he was fragile or broken. He just smiled. The man introduced himself. His name was Alfred William. The girl was his daughter Catherine. Alfred said he noticed Leo watching and wondered if Leo wanted to try carving. Faith started to say no, started to explain that Leo could not speak, that he had medical issues, that he needed special accommodations. But Alfred was not talking to Faith. He was talking to Leo. Alfred showed Leo the wooden whistle. He explained that it was made from birch wood, that it took 3 days to carve, that when you blew through it just right, it sounded like a robin. Leo reached out and touched the whistle. Alfred let him hold it. Then Alfred showed Leo how to blow through it. He demonstrated by putting the whistle to his own lips and making the bird sound again. Catherine clapped and said it sounded like the birds in their backyard. Alfred laughed and handed the whistle to Leo. Leo held the whistle carefully. He looked at it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Then he put it to his lips. Faith held her breath. She did not know why. She just felt like something important was about to happen. Leo blew. At first there was only air, a soft whoosh of breath. But then there was a sound, a small breathy whistle. It was rough and inconsistent, but it was real. It came from Leo's throat, from his vocal cords, from a part of his body that doctors said would never work. Faith's phone fell from her hand. It hit the grass with a soft thud. She did not notice. She was staring at her son. Leo tried again. This time the whistle was a little clearer, a little stronger. Catherine clapped and said it was good. Alfred smiled and told Leo he was a natural. Leo looked at Faith. There was something in his eyes she had not seen in years. Pride, joy, accomplishment. Faith walked over on shaking legs. She knelt down next to Leo and touched his face. She asked him if he made that sound. Leo nodded. Faith looked at Alfred. She asked him how. How did he do in 30 seconds what specialists could not do in 5 years? Alfred said he did not do anything. He just gave Leo something worth trying for. Something fun instead of medical. Something that felt like play instead of therapy. Faith asked Alfred who he was, what he did. Alfred said he was a former park ranger, that he worked with now, that he and Catherine spent most days outside carving and learning about nature. Faith offered Alfred money. She said she would pay him whatever he wanted to work with Leo, to teach him, to help him find his voice. Alfred said no. He said you could not buy a voice. Leo needed a reason to use it, and reasons could not be purchased. Faith did not understand. She was a CEO. She solved problems with money and resources. But Alfred was telling her that Leo's problem could not be solved that way. Alfred stood up and told Faith that if she wanted Leo to find his voice, she needed to let him be a kid first. Then Alfred and Catherine walked back to their bench and continued carving. Faith sat on the grass next to Leo. She watched her son hold the wooden whistle like it was treasure, and she realized that maybe she had been trying to fix the wrong thing all along. Faith could not stop thinking about what happened in the park. She went home that night and sat in Leo's room while he slept. She watched his chest rise and fall. She thought about the sound he made, that rough, breathy whistle that came from a throat doctors said would never work. The next morning, Faith did something she had not done in years. She canceled her morning meetings. She told her assistant to clear her schedule. Then she took Leo back to Lars Anderson Park. She hoped Alfred would be there. He was sitting on the same bench with Catherine, carving wood. Faith walked over and asked if they could talk. Alfred said sure. Catherine immediately took Leo by the hand and showed him the birds near the pond. Leo went willingly. Faith was surprised. Leo usually stayed close to her. He did not trust strangers, but he trusted Catherine. Faith sat on the bench next to Alfred. She told him she wanted to hire him. She said she would pay him $100,000 to work with Leo for 6 months, to teach him whatever he did yesterday, to help Leo find his voice. Alfred stopped carving. He looked at Faith for a long moment. Then he said no. Faith increased the offer. $200,000. Alfred said no again. Faith asked him why. She said she was offering him life-changing money. Money that could change his and Catherine's future. Why would he refuse? Alfred said because Faith was trying to buy a result instead of understanding the process. He said Leo did not need a hired specialist. He needed connection. He needed play. He needed to feel like making sounds was fun instead of work. Faith said she understood that. That was why she was hiring Alfred, because he knew how to make it fun. Alfred said if Faith hired him, it would stop being fun. It would become a job, an obligation, a treatment plan. And Leo would sense that. Kids always sense when adults had agendas. Faith felt frustration rising. She asked Alfred what he wanted then. If not money, what? Alfred said he wanted Faith to bring Leo to his workshop on Saturday mornings. No payment, no contracts, no pressure. Just Leo and Catherine playing together, while Alfred taught them woodworking and nature skills. If Leo made progress, great. If not, at least he would have a friend. Faith said she could not accept charity. Alfred said it was not charity. It was community. Something Faith clearly did not have much experience with. Faith was offended, but she was also desperate, so she agreed. That Saturday, Faith drove Leo to Alfred's workshop. It was in a small building on the edge of town, the kind of place Faith would normally never visit. The parking lot was dirt. The building was old wood. There was sawdust everywhere. Catherine ran out when they arrived. She grabbed Leo's hand and pulled him inside. Faith followed. The workshop was small but warm. There were workbenches covered in with shavings, shelves full of hand tools, projects in various stages of completion. It smelled like pine and varnish. Alfred showed Leo and Catherine a pile of wood blocks. He said they were going to make bird whistles, real ones that worked. He showed them how to hold the carving tools safely, how to shave small amounts of wood at a time, how to sand the edges smooth. Leo watched carefully. Then he tried. His first attempts were clumsy. The wood slipped. The knife did not cut cleanly. But Alfred was patient. He showed Leo again. And again, never frustrated, never disappointed. Catherine chattered the whole time. She told Leo about the birds she had seen, about the sounds they made, about how each bird had a different call. Leo listened. He did not respond, but he was engaged, present, interested. After an hour, Alfred showed them how to use their whistles. He explained that you had to blow from your diaphragm, not just your mouth. You had to push air from deep in your belly. He demonstrated. A clear bird call filled the workshop. Catherine tried. Her whistle was squeaky but recognizable. Then it was Leo's turn. Leo put the whistle to his lips. He blew. At first only air came out, then a faint sound, then a clearer whistle. Catherine clapped. Alfred smiled. And Leo tried again. This time the whistle was stronger, more confident. Faith stood in the doorway watching. She had her hand over her mouth. Tears were running down her face. Her son was making sounds. Multiple sounds. Voluntarily, joyfully. Alfred told Leo he was doing great, that his diaphragm was getting stronger, that the more he practiced, the easier it would become. Leo nodded. Then he did something that made Faith gasp. He laughed. It was not a full laugh. It was more like a breathy chuckle. But it was audible. It was real. It came from Leo's vocal cords. Catherine laughed too. She said Leo's laugh was funny. Alfred told Catherine that all laughs were funny. That was what made them laughs. The rest of the morning passed quickly. Leo and Catherine carved and whistled and played. Faith sat in a corner and watched. She did not check her phone. She did not think about work. She just watched her son be happy. When it was time to leave, Catherine hugged Leo goodbye. She told him to come back next week. Leo looked at Faith and pointed to the door. He wanted to stay, but Faith said they had to go. In the car on the way home, Leo held his wooden whistle the entire time. He did not use his iPad once. He just sat quietly holding his whistle and looking out the window. Faith asked Leo if he had fun. Leo nodded. Faith asked if he wanted to go back next week. Leo nodded again, more enthusiastically. Faith said okay. They would go back every Saturday, as long as Leo wanted to. That night, Faith did something she had not done in 5 years. She went to bed without crying, without lying awake worrying about Leo's future. She just went to sleep, peaceful, hopeful. Over the next 6 weeks, Leo went to Alfred's workshop every Saturday. Each week, he got a little better. His whistles got clearer. His sounds got stronger. He started making small humming noises while he carved. And then one Saturday afternoon, while Leo was working on a wooden flute with Catherine, something happened. Leo laughed, a full real laugh. loud and joyful and unmistakable. Catherine had said something funny about a squirrel, and Leo laughed. Faith was standing in the hallway. She heard it. She put her hand on the wall to steady herself. Then she started crying. Alfred walked over and put his hand on her shoulder. He told her Leo's vocal cords were not paralyzed. They were just asleep. They needed a reason to wake up. Faith asked Alfred how she could ever repay him. Alfred said she could not, but she could learn. She could learn to slow down, to be present, to let Leo be a kid instead of a patient. Faith said she would try. Alfred said that was all anyone could do. Listen, if you've made it this far in the story, you're invested. You want to know what happens to them. But here's the thing. Most people scroll past these stories without subscribing. They watch, they enjoy, and they disappear. If this story matters to you, if you actually care how it ends, hit that subscribe button, please. It takes 2 seconds. And if you don't, you'll probably forget about this channel and never hear another amazing story from me. Everything changed 3 months after Leo started going to Alfred's workshop. Faith received a legal notice at her office. Her stepbrother, Richard, was filing for custody of Leo. Faith stared at the papers in disbelief. Richard had barely spoken to her in 5 years. He had shown no interest in Leo since the day the boy was born, and now he wanted custody. Faith called her lawyer immediately. The lawyer read through the filing and explained the situation. Richard was claiming that Faith was mentally unfit to care for Leo, that her reliance on improving alternative methods instead of proper medical care proved she was unstable, that Leo needed professional institutional care that Faith refused to provide. The lawyer said Richard had hired a team of medical experts, doctors who would testify that Leo's condition required specialized residential treatment, that Faith's experiments with a woodworker in a workshop were dangerous and neglectful. Faith asked why Richard was doing this. The lawyer said it was probably about money. Leo had a trust fund worth $40 million. If Richard gained custody, he would control that money as Leo's guardian. He would also gain voting rights over Faith's shares in the family company through the guardianship. Faith realized this was not about Leo at all. This was about Richard trying to take what he had always believed should have been his. Their father had left the company to Faith instead of Richard. Richard had been bitter about it for years. Now he saw a way to get control. Faith told her lawyer to fight it, to do whatever it took. The lawyer said they would, but the lawyer also warned Faith that the case was serious. Richard had evidence. Photographs of Faith taking Leo to an unlicensed workshop. Records showing Faith had stopped taking Leo to his scheduled medical appointments. Witness statements from hospital staff saying Faith had become hostile and difficult. Faith said those medical appointments were useless. The doctors had done nothing for Leo in 5 years. But the lawyer said that did not matter. What mattered was that Faith had stopped following medical advice and started trusting a stranger with no credentials. The lawyer said Faith needed to be prepared. Richard's legal team would paint her as a desperate mother who had abandoned science for false hope. They would use Alfred against her. Faith asked what she should do. The lawyer said to document everything. Keep records of Leo's progress. Get statement from Alfred about his methods. Prepare to fight. Faith left the meeting feeling sick. She drove straight to Alfred's workshop. Leo was there with Catherine making wooden animals. Faith pulled Alfred aside and told him what was happening. Alfred's face went dark. He asked if Richard had ever even met Leo. Faith said once. At Leo's birth, Richard looked at the silent baby and called him defective. Then he left and never came back. Alfred said that man should not be allowed anywhere near Leo. Faith agreed, but she said Richard had lawyers and money and a case that sounded reasonable on paper. She said her lawyer was worried. Alfred asked what he could do to help. Faith said she did not know. She said Richard's team would argue that Alfred was unqualified, that his methods were unproven, that Faith was risking Leo's health by trusting him. Alfred said his methods were working. Leo was making sounds. He was laughing. He was happy. That had to count for something. Faith said it did count. To her. but not necessarily to a judge who only saw medical records and expert testimony. Over the next 2 weeks, Faith prepared for the custody hearing. Her lawyers gathered evidence. They documented Leo's progress. They recorded videos of Leo making sounds and laughing. They prepared statements from Faith about her care for Leo. But Richard's team was preparing too. They brought in Dr. Marcus Chun, one of the top pediatric vocal specialists in the country. Dr. Chun reviewed Leo's case and wrote a report. The report said that Leo's occasional sounds were not evidence of recovery, that children with congenital vocal fold paralysis sometimes made involuntary sounds that meant nothing, that without proper medical intervention, Leo's condition would worsen. Dr. Chen's report also said that Faith's decision to stop medical treatment and rely on folk remedies was negligent, that Leo needed surgery and professional therapy, that Faith was denying her son proper care because she could not accept his disability. Faith read the report and felt rage. Dr. Chen had never met Leo, had never seen him laugh or whistle or interact with Catherine, but his credentials and reputation gave his words weight that Faith's observations did not have. Faith's lawyer said they needed their own medical expert, someone who could examine Leo and testify that he was improving. Faith contacted 3 specialists. All of them refused. They said they would not contradict Dr. Chan. He was too respected, too powerful in the medical community. Faith felt trapped. She had truth on her side, but no way to prove it in a way the legal system would accept. Then Leo started to change. He sensed something was wrong. Faith tried to hide her stress, but children always knew. Leo became quiet again, withdrawn. He stopped making sounds as often. He stopped laughing. Faith asked Alfred what to do. Alfred said Leo needed to feel safe, that stress would undo all the progress they had made. But Faith could not make Leo feel safe when she was terrified herself. 2 days before the hearing, Leo stopped going to the workshop. He refused to get in the car. He sat on his bed holding his wooden whistle, but would not use it. Faith sat next to him and cried. She told Leo she was sorry, that she was trying to protect him, that everything would be okay. But Leo just stared at the wall, silent again, just like he had been for the first 5 years of his life. Faith realized that by trying to save Leo from Richard, she might have already lost him. The custody hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. Faith's lawyer said their case was weak without Leo demonstrating his progress, without Leo making sounds in front of the judge. It was just Faith's word against medical experts. Faith asked if Leo would have to testify. The lawyer said probably, that the judge would want to ask Leo questions, to see if he understood what was happening. Faith said Leo would not speak in front of strangers, especially not in a stressful courtroom. The lawyer said then they had a problem. Sunday night, Faith could not sleep. She lay in bed thinking about losing Leo, about Richard putting him in some institution, about never hearing her son laugh again. At midnight, Faith got up and went to Leo's room. He was awake, staring at the ceiling. Faith climbed into bed next to him and held him. She told Leo that tomorrow would be hard, that there would be people asking questions, that a man who did not love him would try to take him away. But Faith promised she would fight. She would never stop fighting for him. Leo turned and looked at Faith. Then he did something he had not done in days. He put his wooden whistle to his lips and blew. One soft, clear note. Faith held him tighter and cried. The custody hearing took place in a private judge's chamber on Monday morning. It was a small windowless room with wood paneling and fluorescent lights. There was a long table, chairs on both sides, a court reporter in the corner. Faith sat on one side with her lawyers. Leo sat next to her holding his wooden whistle. Alfred sat behind them. He was not part of the case officially, but Faith had asked him to come. She needed someone there who understood what Leo had been through. Richard sat on the other side with his lawyers. He wore an expensive suit. He looked confident. He had not even glanced at Leo since entering the room. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison. She had reviewed all the documents before the hearing. Now she wanted to hear arguments from both sides. Richard's lead attorney went first. He presented the medical reports. He showed Dr. Chen's statement that Leo needed institutional care. He showed records of Faith missing medical appointments. He argued that Faith had abandoned proven medical treatment in favor of unproven folk remedies. The attorney said Faith's judgment was compromised by desperation, that she was so focused on finding a miracle cure that she was endangering her son's health. He said Leo deserved a guardian who would prioritize medical science over false hope. Then Dr. Chen testified by video call. He explained Leo's condition in technical terms. He said congenital vocal fold paralysis was permanent, that the sounds Faith claimed Leo made were likely involuntary spasms, that without proper treatment Leo would never develop functional speech. Dr. Chen said the best option was a specialized residential program where Leo could receive proper therapy and learn alternative communication methods. He said Faith's refusal to accept reality was harming Leo. Faith's lawyer tried to cross-examine Dr. Chen. She asked if he had ever met Leo. Dr. Chen said no. She asked if he had reviewed the videos of Leo making sounds. Dr. Chen said he had, but that the videos proved nothing. Random sounds were not speech. Then it was Faith's turn. Her lawyer presented the videos of Leo laughing and whistling. They showed Leo at the workshop carving wood and playing with Catherine. They showed a happy, engaged child. Faith testified about Leo's progress. She told the judge about the first whistle in the park, about Leo's growing confidence, about his laughter. She said Leo had made more progress in 3 months with Alfred than in 5 years with specialists. Richard's attorney cross-examined Faith. He asked why she thought a woodworker was more qualified than trained doctors. Faith said because Alfred treated Leo like a child instead of a medical case. The attorney asked if Faith had any medical evidence that Leo was actually improving. Faith said she had her own observations and Alfred's testimony. The attorney said observations and testimony from unqualified people were not medical evidence. He asked Faith if she was willing to risk her son's future on the advice of a man with no medical training. Faith said she was willing to trust a man who gave her son his voice back. Then Alfred testified. He explained his background as a park ranger. He talked about working with injured animals and understanding how trauma affected behavior. He said Leo's vocal cords were not paralyzed. They were just unused. He explained how teaching Leo to use his diaphragm through whistles had strengthened those muscles. Richard's attorney asked Alfred if he had any medical degree. Alfred said no. The attorney asked if he had published any research. Alfred said no. The attorney asked why anyone should trust his amateur theories over Dr. Chen's expert opinion. Alfred said because he had actually spent time with Leo, because he had seen Leo laugh and play and make sounds, because he treated Leo like he mattered instead of like he was broken. The judge listened to everything. Then she said she wanted to ask Leo some questions. She asked Faith if Leo could understand and respond. Faith said Leo understood everything, but communicated mostly through nodding and his iPad. The judge asked Leo to come sit in the chair across from her. Faith helped Leo walk over. He looked small in the big chair, scared. The judge spoke gently. She asked Leo if he knew why he was there. Leo nodded. The judge asked Leo if he understood that his uncle Richard wanted him to live somewhere else. Leo nodded again. The judge asked Leo where he wanted to live. Leo looked at Faith, then at Alfred, then at the table. Richard's attorney said this proved the point. Leo could not communicate. He needed professional help. The judge told the attorney to be quiet. She asked Leo again. She said he could use his iPad to answer, that it was okay. Leo sat very still. He was breathing hard. His face was turning red. Faith could see he was struggling with something. Then Alfred leaned forward slightly. He caught Leo's eye. He put his fingers to his lips and made a small whistling motion, just a gesture, nothing dramatic. Leo's whole body changed. He sat up straighter. He took a deep breath, then another. The judge asked Leo if he was okay. Leo did not nod. He did not reach for his iPad. Instead, Leo stood up from his chair. He looked at Richard. Richard was staring at his phone, bored and dismissive, like Leo did not even matter. Then Leo looked at Faith, at the woman who had fought for him for 5 years, who had spent millions trying to help him, who had never given up. Leo opened his mouth. His chest heaved. His throat worked. 5 years of unused vocal cords trying to remember what they were for. And then sound came out. Not a whistle, not a laugh. Words. Rough, raspy, barely audible, but unmistakably clear. 3 words that changed everything. Stay with Mama. The room went completely silent. The court reporter stopped typing. Richard's attorneys froze. The judge stared. Faith gasped and covered her mouth. Tears poured down her face. Leo said it again, louder this time. Clearer. Stay with Mama. Richard looked up from his phone. His face went pale. His lead attorney started shuffling papers desperately. The judge asked Leo to repeat what he said. Leo looked at her and spoke again. I stay with Mama. The judge smiled. She said that was all she needed to hear. She said Leo had clearly demonstrated the ability to communicate, that he understood the situation, that he had expressed his preference clearly. She said Richard's petition for custody was denied, that Leo would remain with Faith, that Faith was clearly providing adequate care despite what medical experts claimed. Richard's attorney tried to object. The judge said the hearing was over. Faith fell to her knees and hugged Leo. He hugged her back. Then Alfred came over and put his hand on Leo's shoulder. Catherine ran in from the waiting room and hugged Leo too. Richard stood up and left without a word. His case was destroyed. His plan had failed. 6 months later, Faith stepped down as CEO of her company. She took a consulting role that let her work from home. She spent her mornings at Alfred's workshop with Leo and Catherine, her afternoons answering emails, her evenings reading to Leo before bed. Leo's voice got stronger every day. He asked why constantly. He argued with Catherine about whose wooden animal was better. He sang songs off-key. He told Faith he loved her every night before sleep. Faith would not trade a single sound for all the money in the world. Faith spent 5 years trying to fix Leo with money and expertise. She believed the best specialists and the most expensive treatments would solve the problem. But Leo did not need fixing. He needed connection. He needed someone who saw him as whole instead of broken. The truth is that credentials and expertise matter, but they are not everything. Sometimes a person with the letters after their name cannot help you. Sometimes the answer comes from someone with dirt under their fingernails who just treats you like you matter. Leo's vocal cords were not paralyzed. They were just waiting for a reason to work. And that reason was not medical intervention. It was joy. It was play. It was feeling safe enough to try. Some of you are not just listening to this story. You are remembering parts of your own life. You work long hours. You came home tired and tried to hold a house together, believing there would always be time later for conversations. Then one day you realize children grow up quietly, and some chances don't come back. Many of you have also seen things you never really spoke about. People you expected to grow old beside are gone, and life simply kept moving while you carried it privately. You showed up. You provided. You stayed. That matters more than you were ever told. I put together a small book about fathers and children, the distance that sometimes forms, and the small things that can still change how the relationship turns out over time. If it feels like something you want to look at, the link is in the description. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Please subscribe to this channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. And here's what I need to know. Do you want part 2?